No, I realize that, but the reason you're not invited back is because you threw up in their baby's crib the first time we had you over there, and that's why you never get invited to these things anymore. That was sort of the last straw. We won't even talk about what happened at the Christmas party the year before with the Doobie Brothers thing. But yeah, so I can't bring you around anymore. But anyway, I gotta go because I got a guy coming. He's delivering that thing for me tonight. Yeah. Well, maybe if you want to apologize to them, you can try, but I don't know how well it's gonna go for you. But yeah, I gotta go though. Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you later. Yeah. Hi. Welcome to Talk About the Passion. Today we're going to talk about the year 1974. Here's what I looked like in 1974. I wasn't listening to this shit yet. That was my friend Leo, and Leo isn't invited to stuff anymore. You ever have one of those friends that you can't like bring around to parties anymore around the group because he just keeps doing shit. It's like hey man, can you not bring Dave by anymore? He really creeped out Phyllis last week at the party. Well, guess what? I have one of those bands in my life, and it's a band that a lot of my friends don't like, and they're an easy target, but they've also been mentioned on this podcast probably 75% of the episode. At least when I was doing just audio only episodes, they were mentioned quite a bit on there, mostly by white guys with a 5 at the beginning of their age. But that's been a lot of guests on this podcast, and this band is sometimes referred to as the hottest band in the land. Other times they're referred to as, a group of misogynistic pieces of garbage. That both of those things are true. And they put out two records in 1974. And being a fan of this band for as long as I have, it hasn't afforded me, the opportunity to like board a plane early when they're like, veterans. You get to go on first. Even though I've been a veteran of this band's army since 1976. So a couple years after this came out, we started listening to these guys around the house. I'm talking about the band Kiss. You knew this was going to happen, and it's going to be quick. I'm kind of in and out of them in the '70s. Once it gets to the '80s, they get a little suspect for me. Not suspect. I didn't like their stuff as much as this stuff. But I go up to Unmasked even. So you know we'll get into that record. Don't worry about it. So in February of 1974, they release their first record, and then in October they release Hotter Than Hell. And I was under the impression that they didn't start to get like real creepy until the second record with like the lyrics, or just not creepy, but just like misogynistic. And so a lot of times when I do these episodes, I do a little research on the records because there's always anecdotes out there or stuff on Wikipedia that may or not be true. So I discovered that that wasn't true, what I thought at all. There's a big nope for that theory I had about Kiss. As a matter of fact, it takes two songs for Kiss to get a little creepy on the lyrical side, with which is arguably their one of their catchiest songs, and it's the second song on the record, which is kind of it doesn't follow that second song rule. I mean, as a musical song, like before I literally found this out like yesterday that this was a thing. Um, and what I found out was the song "Nothing to Lose" is about. Remember that song "Milk, Milk, Lemonade"? Yeah, remember that song? So this song is about a guy who attempts to coerce a woman into meeting him around the corner where fudge is made, and her subsequent enjoyment of that experience. So that's what this song is about, like the catchiest song with the raspy Peter Criss vocals in the chorus, and it's just like an upbeat, like happy song. And who knew it was about butt sex? But that's what it is. And it took, it's the second song on the debut album. But also on this record we get Black Diamond, which is fuck it. I mean, the Replacements did a great cover of that. Firehouse, a staple of live shows for many years. That's the one when Paul would don the fire hat. 100,000 Years, and of course Deuce, which opened a lot of their shows. Of course, after the you wanted the best, you got the best. Stuff happens. But yeah, so that song, don't shoot the messenger, but also don't try to coerce women into doing weird shit unless you want to burn in hell for all eternity. I'm just kidding. So then Harder Than Hell. And speaking of guys being creepy, I remember when I was like 7 or 8 and we were living in Northridge, California, and there was a friend of my brother's whose name was Randy Skolnick, maybe, and he had the cover of Harder Than Hell, and he was showing me the back cover, and he said the pictures of Paul Stanley and Peter Criss were pictures of them bawling. And I never knew what that meant, and I still don't. And I kind of don't want to know what that means. And I mean, I kind of have an idea of what it means looking at the two pictures, but we're going to move on from that. And this record is amazing. And it's probably my favorite of the first three, like Rush and like other bands that BOC that we talked about on here that released 3 records, then a live record. For Kiss, I think this is my favorite because this has, it opens with Got to Choose, which has poor Paul, lamenting, he's giving this woman an ultimatum that, she can't be his and still be mine, which is a fair thing for Paul. He's dealing with this woman who's playing some games with him, which, isn't cool, but that seems to be like every woman these guys seem to run into. So maybe if you don't try to coerce women into sodomistic acts, they won't double cross you like this. Just a hint. I'm sure they've learned that by now. This was 1974. This album also has She, which is, has one of the best Kiss riffs next to Parasite. And then we get creepy with Going Blind, which the Melvins did a fine cover of on the Houdini record. And this is a song about a 93-year-old man trying to profess his love to a 16-year-old. Look, I realize I'm giving people a lot of fuel to shit on this band, and hear me out. Kiss rules. Don't worry about it. Title track, Harder Than Hell. Is another amazing song. And then Cold Gin is on here, right? Cold Gin's on this record. Is that true? Yeah, of course. Because I was going to tell you about this other anecdote. First anecdote of the episode. There's a few coming. Don't worry about it. You know those are always coming. My band Presley had a song called Vodka and Orange Juice, which was named after the when Paul Stanley introduces Cold Gin on the excellent Alive record. And he says, I heard there's a lot of people out there that like to drink vodka and orange juice. So we had a song called Vodka and Orange Juice. A lot of the song titles didn't have anything to do with the song. But anyway, the song that you hear at the end of all of these episodes is that song, Vodka and Orange Juice by Presley, my old band. We're on the thing, on the Spotify's and Apple Music and Amazon Music and YouTube Music, all that stuff. We're out there. Maybe I'll put a link to this song in there. So this is a good segue to get into the next band here, because the next band here, Kiss took out on tour with them around this time, and around 1974 and 1975, and this band was what the fuck was that band? Rush. Debut album. This one's pinkish. This one's a little more red. One of these is on Anthem, and one of these is on Mercury or whatever the fuck they were on. But first Rush album. Every Rush fan has, their opinion on this record. I don't think it's anybody's favorite Rush album. It's my favorite one with John Rutsey. Just kidding. Um, but I mean, maybe it is someone's favorite record. But usually, those kind of people are like those people that just want to try to be like different. Oh, yeah, it's my, they sucked after. Imagine there's a guy like that. They sucked after John Rutsey left. Like after this guy left. R.I.P. John Rutsey. He had some health issues, but like, really. But this is a great record. Whatever. Working Man, of course, is a classic. Opener, Finding My Way is great, and I do love this record. And it's amazing how far they went um, on Caress of Steel, which was like a year and a half later after this or something. They had Fly By Night, which was sort of on the way to that, and they, Caress of Steel. Sorry, I got some gas because I just had Clearly Canadian. I thought of this like a few minutes before doing this because I was drinking this and I was like, Clearly Canadian, Rush. Look at that. You could do a little thing. Let me know how it worked. Or if that was just some stupid fucking thing I did here. Because I'm the king of dad jokes. Anyway, yeah, Rush, welcome to the podcast. You're going to be here for a little while. Enjoy this day. Another band that put out 2 records in 1974. King Crimson. I thought I had a copy of Red, which is the other one that came out in 1974, but I don't, which is kind of, I think I had one and I sold it because I was going to buy the new version or so. I do that, and then I forget, and especially now I forget a lot of stuff. But these 2 records are 2 of my favorites of, this early era. They have all the different eras of the band, obviously. But Bible Black, this one comes out in March and features pretty much the same lineup as the Lark's Tongues and Aspic record with, Fripp, Bill Bruford, John Wetton, and David Cross, not the comedian. The violin, keyboards. And I love this record. Maybe not as much as Red, but I mean, this one includes Fracture, which to me kind of almost sounds like what's going to come when like Adrian Belew and Tony Levin joined the band, which is an amazing era of the band as well. And then just like, it's fine. One of his finest moments is Lament, which John Wetton I'm talking about. I love his singing on these King Crimson records, and especially this one. But Lament is where he starts off kind of real subdued and then like turns into a maniac at the end. Amazing song. The Night Watch is on here. And of course the song Starless in Bible Black, which is amazing. And then there's Red, which comes out in October. And man, every single note on this record makes perfect sense, but also gets like stuck wandering around in your head, wondering how the fuck did they, come up with this? Sometimes cacophonous mess of noise, and other times these, melancholy melodies that just make you want to cry. At least me, because I'm that kind of person. A little wimpy down inside, especially now that I'm on hormone therapy for cancer that I'm dealing with right now. There's always got to be a cancer thing in these episodes. Sorry, it's just, what's going on now. I thought I had Red in the playlist here. Oh yeah, there we go. 5 songs, you're in a know. Red, Fallen Angel, One More Red Nightmare, Providence, and then Starless, which might be it's one of my favorite songs. And I saw the band a few years ago up in Saratoga Springs, New York, a few hours from here. And I live 15 minutes from our amphitheater, but they didn't play here. But I'll take the extra. If a band's playing there and they're playing in SPAC, I'll go to SPAC. Just it's a beautiful venue. I've seen everyone from Rush to Fish, the Allman Brothers, one of the later versions of the Grateful Dead. Um, and then King Crimson a few years ago. Steely Dan. I think I saw Steely Dan there. I don't know. Judas Priest was there this past summer, and I didn't go. Sad. I didn't like the set list. You know, when nowadays I'll look up what a band's going to do on a tour before I spend $165 to see them from 300 yards away. I'm one of those guys that complains, I don't want to pay this. But really, SPAC, beautiful venue. Went to see King Crimson there a few years ago. It was the 3-drummer lineup, which I was a little skeptical about, but it turned out to be amazing. And they played the song Starless, and I think I saw God. But I also did eat these gummies that I think might have been poisoned before the show. I ate them before the show. And they may have been poison, which may have done something to my experience during that song, as well as Epitaph, which that song you ever have a gummy thing that's poisoned and you get into your head and you can't get out of it? That happened during that song Epitaph. Anyway, let's get back to riffs. I don't know what I'm talking about. I just meant this is what I heard some people talking about. Deep Purple released two. Let me just get a little ahead of myself. I didn't eat edibles. I mean, the things I didn't. Frank, you'll cut this last 15 minutes of this out? Thank you. Deep Purple releases 2 albums in 1974, Stormbringer and Burn. And these both feature newcomer David Coverdale. Burn is the first one, I believe. And while Coverdale isn't Ian Gillan, but who is? I love his vocals on these records. And on Burn, opening track Burn is this fast, hard charging, riff heavy song that Coverdale owns. And then 3 songs in, he gets kind of sketchy with the lyrics. Takes over from what these guys were always kind of throwing with the song Lay Down, Stay Down, which I'm sure you can use your imagination to figure out what a song called Lay Down, Stay Down is, by a gentleman by the name of David Coverdale, because I'm sure you know what some of his music was like throughout the years after Deep Purple with Whitesnake. They weren't exactly Leonard Cohen. I like Stormbringer much better, not just because of the cover. And by the way, this photograph, this is based on a photograph of a tornado that happened in Jasper, Minnesota. And this same tornado is used on Miles Davis's Bitches Brew, which we'll put up on the screen here, and Susie and the Banshees Tinderbox. This is another thing I didn't know until yesterday. So that's kind of neat, right? Too bad theirs doesn't have a fucking Pegasus jumping over the fucking... I shouldn't swear that much. They're going to get I'm not making money off this. They don't have a Pegasus jumping over theirs. The song Stormbringer, based on the sword of Elric from the Michael Moorcock novels, which Blue Oyster Cult also sings about a few years later on, I'm sorry, Black Blade, which we'll get to at some point. It's a great album that one's on. That's on Fire of Unknown Origin, I think, maybe, or Cultist. I don't know. It's on one of those ones, but we'll get there. But Lady Double Dealer is another one of Blackmore's finest moments, and vocal, the bassist Glenn Hughes is on this record as well, and him and Coverdale trade vocals on the Gypsy, which is another highlight of this record. And maybe not an essential Deep Purple record, but and some folks don't like this era of the band, but I prefer Gillan, obviously. But these records, these 3 records they did with him are all pretty solid. So check them out. Stormbringer, I think it's the best of the 3. Maybe no. What's the next one? Come Taste the Band? No, I don't know. I think I'm losing my mind here. We're gonna get weird now, though. Do you know about these guys? I got into these guys around 1984, The Residents. This one came out in 1974, obviously, because that's what we're talking about here. And of course, this is a takeoff on the Beatles, Meet the Beatles record, right? Of course. It even says Paul Crawfish, John Crawfish, George Crawfish, and of course, Ringo Starfish, who is a literal starfish. Pretty funny, right? But I started listening to these with my friend Peter Biebergall, who we've talked about on here before. He got me into punk rock. And we would often smoke marijuana in his bedroom in the basement of his family's condo. But we would listen to the commercial album by The Residents. And yeah, that album like kind of blew my mind. It was just weird. But so this record, this is their debut record. And it opens with like a pretty weird take. It's called Boots, and it's a pretty weird take on These Boots Are Made for Walking. And then followed by one of my favorite songs on here, Numb Aroni. And, most of this song, the first half of this song, the record, the songs all kind of flow together, and they're only like a couple minutes long. And, but they're weird. And, Numb Aroni is this, sort of 2 minute, it's like this upbeat, jazzy, like distorted piano number. And then, some of this record gets terrifying, like Breath and Length, which, just go look that up. And don't blame me if you can't sleep tonight after you listen to it. But, this record for a debut record, too, it's a tough listen. And, it's way easier to digest than say Beefheart's Trout Mask Replica, but it lives in that same sort of world of difficult music. But I think this one is fun. I don't know, it's got humor to it. Where the Captain Beefheart one almost seemed like it was like trying too hard to be weird. But I mean, obviously the way when the history of Trout Mask Replica and how that was put together, it obviously wasn't not serious. But it's got a more serious tone in this record, obviously, especially with fucking Ringo Starfish here. But hey, that record also had a guy with a fish face. Hey, that. And speaking of Beefheart, there's a song on here called Infant Tango, which sounds kind of like Sun Ra and like that real early funkadelic stuff with like a Beefheart type vocal on it. And there's a hauntingly gorgeous song called Rest Aria on here that's pretty good. And I don't know, this is a cool record. If you don't know it or the Residents at all, they're supposed to play here. They were supposed to play here early this year. I almost said next year. I'm still writing 2025 on checks. Those guys that do that. Oh, you're writing checks still in 2025? You fucking weirdo. I put too much sugar in that tea. Staying with weird guys though, let's move on to this. This happens in 1974. More Frank Zappa. Apostrophe, of course, has classics like Cosmic Debris, the song Apostrophe, which has some of his like best guitar playing, Stinkfoot. And this has Ainsley Dunbar, Jack Bruce, George Duke, who's one of my favorites in the band. But this is sort of the start of like my favorite of his guitar playing, and that especially shows up on this record, which is just Zappa and the Mothers Roxy and Elsewhere. The guitar, even just the back of the fucking record is him with that SG, and the guitar playing on this record and just the sound quality on this record is amazing for a live rock record. It's one of my favorite rock albums, just sound wise, live. And it has some of their best stuff, like and of course a lot of the silly lyrics and vocal stylings are on this record, but I can kind of put in the background because the playing is so good on this. But Penguin and Bondage, Pygmy Twilight, Village of the Sun, and then More Trouble Every Day, which was sort of a rehashing of an updated version of Trouble Every Day, which showed up on Freak Out. But it's sort of a newer version of that that's still relevant 5 years after a version on Freak Out. Miles Davis released a bunch of records that were similar around this time. When he was doing this sort of fusion stuff and electric organ and that kind of stuff. And he put out a record. I'm not going to talk about all these records because a lot of them are kind of similar, and they're all interchangeable in a way. Some of them are live, some of them are studio, some are like hybrids. But the only reason I wanted to talk about Big Fun was just for like a brief anecdote about this record, which is there was a relationship that you may or may not know between the song Great Expectations on this Miles Davis record and the first song on this record by Jesus Lizard, second record, Goat, Then Comes Dudley. Guitar player Dwayne Dennison has admittedly talked about the guitar melody he plays on Then Comes Dudley was lifted from the trumpet melody that Miles plays in Great Expectations. You should go check it out. Listen to both of them together. It's pretty neat, and it just makes the Jesus Lizard cooler than they already were. But we're going to go back to riffs now, because this happens in 1974. Remember that time you asked me what happened to Michael Schenker after he left the Scorpions? This is what happened. They have, by the way, all these UFO reissues. I just got 3 of them. Well, I got 4. I got the live box set, which is amazing because you can hear sort of like why they picked certain versions and yada yada yada. Good stuff. UFO. Great band. So this is the first record with Michael Schenker. And before we get into that, though, another quick story, anecdote. I like that word, anecdote. I was living in Los Angeles in 2009, I think, or 11, something like that. And I was driving around Tarzana, California, late at night in the valley, and I pulled up to a red light, and I was listening to the Iron Maiden song, Children of the Damned, in my car, not loud. And a guy pulled up to me in like a Mustang or some sort of muscle car, and he had his windows open, and he was blasting Doctor, Doctor by UFO. If you know anything about Iron Maiden live concerts in the last, I don't think they've been doing it forever, but when the lights go out in the venue at an Iron Maiden show, since whenever they started doing it, they play the entire song Doctor, Doctor by UFO to sort of psych them up in the crowd. Because as an Iron Maiden fan, up the irons, that they're about to come out and fucking play Aces High or whatever. And so I was like, oh my God, I need to like get this guy's attention and be like, because of course I'm one of those people that if I see a guy in a fucking store and he's wearing a, Fates Warning shirt or something, and I'll be like, hey, what's up, man? I know Fates Warning. So of course I wanted to let this guy know that, hey, that what's happening here. And he probably didn't. And then the light turned green and he drove away, and he was spared a lifetime of having to tell people about the time he was at the red light at Ventura and White Oak, and some guy was like trying to get his attention, and he got scared and fucking zoomed out of there. Anyway, UFO phenomenon. It's not their best one, but it's the start of something amazing. The song "Doctor Doctor" is obviously great, and the rifftastic. What are you writing for a circus magazine? Rock Bottom showcases, what you kind of heard Schenker was going to start doing in the Scorpions. Built for Comfort, I also love. A great record, but I think, what happens after this is much better. And then, of course, Michael Schenker, when he went solo, I think that's one of my favorite bands. Um, did you think that you were going to get away with Budgie not being mentioned on here again? You're friggin' wrong. Because we got another one here called In for the Kill. This one features the opener is amazing. It's got the song Metallica, another one Metallica covered, Crash Course in Brain Surgery, which I think also was on the first record or a single in 1971. Or a lot of these bands in Europe did weird shit with releasing LPs and. And but this record's great, and it's another just. I'm gonna just keep stressing it. I think you should look for this box set that has these three records: Budgie from 1970, like the MCA albums 73 to 75, which is what we've been covering here. We're going to get to one more on the next episode. This is a cool little booklet that came with it too, and like you get the albums in these little sleeves. You could probably find this for $23. If you don't find it, I'll friggin' find it and buy it for you. No, I'm not going to do that, but you know how to shop or whatever. If you're watching this and you're still watching this 43 minutes or whatever the hell we're into at this point, you probably have this. You probably like fast forward through this to get to the next shit, which is this. Well, one more. The 10-minute song Zoom Club, which is like a Zeppelin and Sabbathy blues song. That's another one. No. It's Hammer and Tongs. That's the one. I think, right? Yeah, no. Zoom Club is the 10-minute song. And there's a single version of that too that they did. Anyway, 1970. I bought this. Look at this. I bought this at In Your Ear, probably in the 90s for $5.99. So Funkadelic releases. We've been talking about Funkadelic for a bit here on this, and so in 1974, though, we get the return of Eddie Hazel to the band, right? And this record was released on July 10th, 1974, and but on July 3rd, Parliament releases a record called Up for the Downstroke. And at this time, both bands were sort of coexisting with essentially the same members, but the sound was not significantly different, especially on Up for the Downstroke, which still had a little funkadelic sound. But they ended up being more, R&B soul, a lot more horns, a lot more dancey, versus Funkadelic's more acid rock. But let's talk about this one first, because this is my favorite of the two. And this record, there's not a bad song in this. Red Hot Mama, Alice in My Fantasies, which is it's just a crazy. The riff in that song is just, it's just like nonstop, just like hammers you in the friggin' face. And then track 3, and there's another track too. Put it up on the track 2 thing, Frank. And but then track 3 is I'll Stay, which is this sort of moody, slow, sort of the song you get to like breathe to, because then after this you get Sexy Ways, and then side 2 as Standing on the Verge of Getting It On. Jimmy's Got a Little Bitch in Him, and then Good Thoughts Bad Thoughts closes the record, which is sort of like Maggot Brain. It's like a long I gotta put my finger touch ID to. I have the playlist on my computer. I'm trying not to read off a screen anymore. I have like some notes here, which you can probably kind of see me looking at on the iPad, but this thing, because before you got the Frank, you'll cut this out. So then Parliament releases Up for the Downstroke, which is also great. That came out a week before. The title track is one of their bigger songs. And I think they get a little better after this record, so we won't talk about this one too much, but they did they did like a funky, they did an updated, funkier version of Testify. which is on one of the earlier records. We're running out of time here, I think. I feel like I've been talking for a while. And my voice is starting to get that thing again. So let's take a sip of a carbonated beverage because those are supposed to really help your throat. That's what my doctor told me. I am from Massachusetts, obviously. I'm wearing a fucking Patriots hat. I'm wearing an SSD hoodie. And I got a fucking Red Sox tattoo. So, of course, I'm going to just talk about this for 2 minutes. We're going to talk about some Aerosmith albums. This is a great record. I love Aerosmith up until, like most of us, like Draw the Line, Night in the Ruts has some good songs. Even Rockin' a Hard Place had a couple of ones. That's the one without Joe Perry, Steve Perry. Same Old Song and Dance, Lord of the Thighs, and then Seasons of Wither, which is one of their best songs. Not my favorite record. I love Rocks and Draw the Line, I think a little better. So we'll move on from that one. But Aerosmith, I'm from Boston. I have to like them, just like the Jay Giles Band. Judas Priest, Rock-a-Rolla. Their debut record comes out in 1974, which has two covers. It has the one that has the bottle cap, which is the one we all know and love. Then it's got this other stupid one that has this like demon guy flying through the sky. He's got wings and he's holding onto a rocket in one hand and then a sword in the other. Is someone over there? Is the doll coming alive? This record is good. My favorite song in here is Winter Deep Freeze, Cheater, whatever it is. It's like the real doomy long one. And they didn't play, aside from Diamonds and Rust, I don't think they did many of these songs later on, or after this era, the early 70s. But they did bust out Never Satisfied, which is like, I don't know why that wasn't in the set list. But they were doing that on the Epitaph tour. And I think Rob Halford's solo band apparently covered this from what I read. That's just what I read. Sometimes I read stuff. And who knows if it's true. There's some guy out there. Fake news. They never did that on the Rob Halford solo tour. I know all the Rob Halford solo tour set lists. Leave me alone. This record rules, and they only got better after this. Let's move on to a record that was, nominated by many people in the world to have the worst album cover ever, which I'll put it on the screen, and you'll probably immediately agree with that. But the song has, this record has it's not the best Scorpions album, but this is the first one where like Uli Roth takes over, and he even sings, which he sings on the song "Drifting Sun," which was a great song, and but I think Klaus should just be the only guy singing in this band. But this record, the opening song in this record, "Speedy's Coming," which was like a song about like worshiping, famous people and just like the cult of fandom and that kind of stuff. But that's one of their best songs, and of course there's a better version of that song on the live record, the Tokyo tapes. Another record which disappeared from my house somehow, and I think that was one of those ones because they reissued all these early score. I'm just looking at this album cover again. What's this guy? What is on his? What does he get? What is on his feet? And what is he? Is he ringing it? But what is he holding? Um, what was I saying? Um, the Tokyo tapes. They reissued all these records, and I was going to buy that one, and I got rid of mine, and then never got it. So who's the asshole now? We weren't really going to talk about like compilations on this, but the Who puts out this Odds and Sods in 1974, which might as well be, this is a great collection. And they always had cool compilations, but this one is more of it's got just a lot of different, this is where you get Long Live Rock, which is one of my favorite songs, song that plays in the credits of Kids Are Alright. Postcard, Now I'm a Farmer. Naked Eye, which is that might be my favorite Who song. That's like a perfect song lyrically, pure and easy. I'm the Face. It's just a cool compilation, and how can you not love that cover? We'll go by this one quick. Yes, Relayer. Um, Great album cover. Gates of Delirium. One of those, songs that's just one, it's just side one of the fucking album. And that's one of their best songs. Rest of the album's okay. Tom Waits in the Heart of Saturday Night. The Heart of Saturday Night. This is my favorite of the Asylum ones before I like the stuff he did later on Island too, when he kind of got like more weird. But for his more crooner type stuff, this is my favorite one. This is probably the first one I heard by him, and people kind of shit on him at this point because they're just like he's corny, and some of the stuff did age weird, and it is kind of like I'm not one of those guys anymore that when I listen to this I romanticized like drinking and that kind of thing, and I don't drink anymore, and not because I had like a problem with it or something, but I was like one of the reading Bukowski, that stuff. But this is still a great record. I don't care. Rain, he's got good music. I like it. Did you think I was never going to talk about Foghat on this podcast? I think maybe I did already. But this record is, we're just going to talk about this for 30 seconds because it has Honey Hush on it, which is a great song, and Home in My Hand, which is it's just a cool 70s rock song. It's not their best album. I think Fool for the City, which I think came out around, I don't know if that might even come out in 74. I don't know. We're going to end this with Steely Dan, Pretzel Logic. The song Pretzel Logic. Any major dude will tell you, and Ricky, don't lose that number. Come on. And then also, 1974, Neil Young. And this is another, like, what, how did I forget this? When I was putting this one together, I literally forgot this one. And this is another one from the Ditch trilogy, On the Beach, which has, like, another one. 8 perfect songs. Walk On. See the Sky About to Rain, which has that, like, perfect organ opening. And just that melody that the organ plays in that. I freaking love it. Revolution Blues, For the Turnstiles, which is another, like, that's just like a gorgeous song, Neil song. Uh, then the song On the Beach. There's 3 blues songs on here: Vampire Blues, Revolution Blues, and then the last song, Ambulance Blues, which is a 9-minute, wonderful song to end this record and to end this podcast, because I feel like we've been talking for a little bit now. Most of these episodes I've been doing, I don't have a timer or anything, and they've all somehow just ended up being 39 minutes long. But I feel like I may have been talking longer than that for this one. So we're going to stop here. And again, thank you for watching these videos and liking them and commenting on them. I really appreciate that. And we will see you in 1975. Thanks for watching.